You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right, hello. Welcome to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. How are you? I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful week. This week here in Connecticut, it is, spring is finally springing, and it is actually sunny and kind of nice. So I'm in a good mood. I hope you are in a good mood. Hey, before we get into it this week, I wanted to make sure you know if you need help developing a personal marketing plan for your market, means based on what people are doing around you, based on what the market is like around you, based on your budget, your tolerance for risk, all that stuff. If you want help building a marketing plan, we will help you do that for free. You can go to AdWordsNerds.com/strategy. That's AdWordsNerds.com/strategy to get the deets, get the details, whatever the kids say. You put a time on the calendar. We would love to talk to you. Okay, this week, I've got a really fun interview with you. I have thought many times as an online marketing person, right? What would I do as a real estate investor? Like, let's say you drop me in the desert. I don't know why that happens, but let's say you're dropping me in the desert. I've got to make my living from real estate investing, but I still have the skills I've gotten from online marketing. How would I do it? I've tried to answer that question in a variety of ways on this show, but this week I am interviewing someone who really did that. I am interviewing Josh Eberly. Josh is a real estate investor in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. You can get to him at 717homebuyers.com. But he's also part of Glanzair Properties, which is a tech company that's doing both marketing and follow-up. They're a holistic marketing solution for real estate investors. So this is an example of a guy who is doing full-time online marketing, moved into real estate investing. So if you are curious, like, how did he go about getting leads? What did he do on his website? Like, how does he approach it differently than a typical real estate investor? This is the interview for you. I hope you enjoy it. I really had a blast talking to Josh. He's a really, really interesting guy. So without any further ado, let's get into this interview with Josh Eberly. All right, this is Daniel Barrett, and I am here with Josh Eberly from 717homebuyers.com and from Glanzair Properties, which you can find at glanzair.com, which is GLANZAIR.com. Josh, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Good, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into both. We were just talking about this, like how many websites to mention on the show. So we will get into both this because you're in this really kind of interesting situation where you are both in the investing game yourself. You're also in the investing marketing game and like follow-up games or software as a service game. There's a ton of stuff kind of going on here. But let's just kind of start off with you. If people aren't familiar with you, give me a little bit of context about, like, if someone said, like, how are you involved in real estate? How do you kind of answer that question? Because you do a lot of different stuff. So how do you intro people to what you do typically?
Yeah, that's a good question. So on the real estate side, we are mostly, me and my partner who I work with, we're mostly interested in either buy and hold rental properties or wholesaling. And so those are our two big revenue streams. And we use a lot of the tactics we'll talk about today, I'm sure, to generate a lot of the leads and working with Dan and his team to generate leads so that we can kind of cherry pick, the nicer ones to buy and hold. And then all the other stuff that we don't want to keep ourselves, we're able to monetize through other means.
So, like, how did you get started in real estate specific? Because people can't see you, but you're a younger guy, or at least you appear to be a younger guy. So what got you into real estate investing? Like, what was your into this industry? Because it's kind of like a weird industry, right? Like, I don't know about you, but like before I started working with real estate investors, I didn't really know that real estate investing was a thing. So I'm most curious, like, what was your kind of introduction?
Yeah. And if I knew shaving would take some years off my face, I would definitely do it more. So thanks, Dan. But real estate, like you said, I really didn't know about it. And I was kind of like that, a kid went to college, had a, degree and a career lined up. And I was like, I'm just going to do my job. And I kind of just wanted more with my life. And, I read a lot of books and, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is, as cliche as that sounds. That was a big book, turning point in kind of my thinking. And I started going on Bigger Pockets and looking up house hacking.
Mm.
And that was my first intro to real estate, because at the time, me and my wife were married. We both had really, really good incomes. And I'm paying like $1,200 in rent
Right.
for an apartment. And, it's great. Granite countertops, really nice where we live, but I have no equity. And so I looked into house hacking. I figured it out. You have to 4 units, FHA loan, all of that. And I just kind of set my mind to doing that. And we started out with a house hack. That's how I got into the game.
Yeah.
And from there, I just networked and kind of learned a little bit from a bunch of different people and got some, good mentors per se in the game, and started to grow my real estate investments.
That's awesome. So yeah, it's interesting, man. It's like everybody has a different but the rich dad, poor dad is such a common one, right? And it's like really successful investors, like they all kind of point back to that book. But it's interesting because like you were able to kind of go on Bigger Pockets. You had this kind of slightly different intro where I think most people, they kind of get in like usually with like wholesaling because they're trying to make money. You were just trying to like make your own living situation, mortgage situation better, which is kind of seems to me like kind of a cool, unique way to get into it. So what were you doing before you were investing full time, or before you were working in real estate full time?
So I was working in digital marketing, digital media. That was kind of my backbone, doing a lot of stuff on Facebook, doing a lot of stuff with web development, monetizing websites. So that was, my day job per se. And my wife was she's a teacher. So, imagine me coming home a little more entrepreneurial and telling her we have to move from a really nice apartment to a multi-unit the house was built in like 1920. It's just like an old house. And I thought I was going to get killed. Like I thought she was going to kill me. And, it was a funny story. She was actually in Florida visiting her family when I put the offer in on this property, and we ended up getting it.
So did you ask before? Did you talk about it beforehand, or you just did it?
We talked about it, but I kind of like on this property was like, do it and then ask forgiveness later.
Right. Yeah.
But it worked out. I mean, we're still married. Yeah.
We're still married. So my second wife, I probably, no, but I mean, I get it though, right? Because I don't know. I don't know if she had this reaction. This was certainly my reaction, right? Because when I first started working in real estate investing, and I was also doing online marketing, or I was doing a bunch of online stuff. And I just happened to get an investor client, and who's still my friend to this day. And I remember having this conversation with him where he was like my age. I was in my 20s or something. And, or maybe like early 30s or something. And he was like, yeah, I buy these houses and then I flip them and I sell them for more money than I bought them for. Wow, it's really cool, man. Like I've never heard of that. Which is like, it kind of just goes to show like the era is so different, right? Because now it's on TV. But at the time, it's like, I never heard of that. I was like, you must have a ton of money just like on hand. And he's like, oh, I don't use my own money. I don't know. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like immediately in my head, I was like, this seems like a scam. So like when you were explaining like what you wanted to do, was she like, is this some sort of like weird scam thing? Like, did you learn this on the internet? Like, what was her impression of it?
No, it was the more traditional, like I want a little bit nicer things, I'd say per se. And the, living situation, it's the status.
Yeah.
It's the status. Like, you look like you have money, you buy the stuff you don't need, all that kind of stuff. So she was fully on board. She trusted me in that process, which I'm really thankful for. But, I kind of had to sit her down, 6, 7, 8 times and like work through the numbers with her and show very logical, because that's how I operate, And so that, in my experience, if you're talking to somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience or doesn't understand, you always go back to the numbers, like really walk them through the numbers, make sure they can understand that. And it kind of opens up some eyes when you do that. Yeah.
And the vision, right? It's like, here's where we want to end up, right? Because it's like one thing to be like, here's where it's going to start. But where it starts, not where it ends, right? That's not the idea. So then you kind of progress. So now you are working with 717 home buyers, right? So you guys are home buyers. You're working in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. That's primarily where you buy houses. And I know you said you're doing primarily buy and hold. You're doing some wholesaling. So what was the jump into like proper wholesaling like for you, right? Like, was it just like really, really gradual and then you saw an opportunity and you jumped on it? Was it like, do you have to quit your old job and like go do this? Like, what was that decision?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I would say I was operating dumb for a couple of years or blind. So I had a marketing agency. I was growing for, all kinds of niches, big clients. And, I'm doing my real estate stuff, but it's on the side mostly. So, I'm trying to find deals through people. I'm even going on, I looked at a couple of properties on the MLS and like I'm going out and looking at these things and I'm just like,
yeah,
there's got to be a better way to get off market properties.
Right.
That I don't have to take all this time and rely on other people because obviously the other people are going to make money too, right? They wouldn't be there.
Right. Everybody's taking a percentage somewhere along the way. Yeah.
So when I realized that, I was like, why don't I just use and apply the skills I've learned and started? Yeah, just mesh the two things, right? I'm like, just mesh these things together and let's get started. And so I'm a firm believer in business of like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to get started in business. So many people, their mind goes to, I have to invent something new or I have to do something new to get started in business.
Right.
And what happens is they procrastinate long enough, they don't do anything. Right. So like a lot of people in the real estate game, I see this time and time again, and you probably see this, Dan, is that, they're like, oh yeah, I want to do wholesaling. I want to do houses. I want to do a website. I want to do a website. Well, the website never gets built.
Right.
Right. So it just never even gets up, So I was like, okay, how do I get a website up very quickly that will convert for wholesaling and motivated sellers? Oh, there's this place called Carrot and I can do a one-click install, right? So
push a button. Push the button. That's awesome, man. Well, and it's funny, man, because I feel like it's almost that trap, what you're talking about, which is very real. I feel like it's almost more dangerous for you and people like you and me, right? We're pretty similar skill sets, but it's like, for me, the temptation would be like, well, I know how to do websites, so I could probably do a better one. What's going to end up happening is that I'm going to just fiddle with it for like a year straight, like trying to get it perfect. And no, I want to do this plugin and I got to do this and I got to do that. And like because I want it to be perfect, it never actually happens. So I think I'm pretty impressed actually that you chose to do that because it would have been so easy for you to be like, I'm just going to develop my own thing.
Right. And done is better than perfect. Right. So
yeah.
And this from a business perspective, I kind of try to teach this to my team and people, it's the 80-20 rule. So like you focus on what you're really good at. Mm-hmm. And in this role, my role is to grow the business. My role is not to be the person that puts on the hat that builds the website.
Right.
And in my other company, that might be my role. But in this role, I'm growing the business. And, if somebody can do, or there's a software that gets you 80% of the way to where you want to be, and you can push a little shortcut button or like the Staples That's Easy button, just hit it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Then just pay for it. It's like I said, it was I think it was like $100 or whatever the heck it was. And I had a website in 30 minutes.
Right.
Your time is way worth more than that $100.
Not to even mention, right, your time, but then also the opportunity cost of all the time you waste fiddling with this thing that's never going to get up. It's like you could have gotten a deal in that time. So it's not even just your time. Then it's like $30,000 or whatever it is you would have gotten from that deal. So I'm so interested. So around what time was this that you first decided you're like, hey, I'm going to mesh these skills and kind of do the online marketing thing, bring my tech skills over to the real estate?
It was about last summer. Yeah, we had gone through some traditional BRRRRs, lines of credit, financing and doing all that stuff. And we had done a flip and I just was like, hey, this is not for me. I don't enjoy these things. Yeah. And I really just want to be the guy that gets the leads in and then either keeps them because they're really good or I sell them and make money.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the guy that fixes stuff. I don't want to have to go pick up a hammer. I want to just be able to run a business that we make money. And I know that leads are coming in and we can monetize them. So that was last summer.
Yeah. What's so cool about real estate too is like, I'm totally with you, right? I'm like, you'd have to pay me like $1 million to pick up a hammer, like even just to pick it up. Right? Like, I'm not paying to do anything. I don't even want to pick it up.
Are we talking Trump bucks or like?
yeah. It's like whatever you got. You got to buy me a coffee just to do it. But I've talked to so many other investors, right, who are the opposite. They're like, you couldn't pay me enough money to touch a computer. All I want to do is like deal with the house, right? So it's so cool that it's like there's room for everybody there. right? To kind of be involved in both parts of that process. So that's really fascinating to me. I mean, it also strikes me, you could tell me, I'm really interested in like your take on this, because now you are, and we're going to get to kind of glands there in a second, right? Because that's kind of like your sort of other part of this industry that you're a part of, but you've been kind of on both parts. You've been in the marketing space, you've been in the straight up, like I'm doing deal space, right? One of my kind of go-to turns of phrase or whatever, right? When I talk about this stuff is I say that like real estate investing is perpetually 5 years behind what everybody else in the economy is doing. It was like the investors figured out that Google Ads was a thing in 2010, which was like a full decade after everybody else, right? So I'm curious, like you're digitally savvy, right? You're a tech first kind of person, right? When you look at it, just real estate investors in general, the industry in general, what is your take on like how they deal with the online space, how they deal with tech, like how far they've come? Like, do you think there's a huge gap or is it small?
There's still a big gap, in my opinion, from my experience. What I see, you have some bigger companies now that are starting to kind of establish themselves in regionalized markets. They're going to be, 4 or 5 counties. They're buying, they have a staff, they have dedicated people in dispositions, acquisitions, they have marketing internal. But majority of people, I'd say about the 95% of people are going to be, 1 to 3 people on their team, right? So it's super small. You're asked to do a lot of things. And just based on like what I see a lot of times is the basics now are much easier to do. Like, 5-10 years ago, getting a website up was a lot bigger of a task. There's software companies out there that do that. The services side, there's companies that do that. Dan, your team does a great job of doing that and providing that service. But where it really falls apart is kind of looking out in a year or 2 years from where you're at now and understanding what I need to do in my business digitally to get to the next level. Yeah. So a lot of people are like, okay, well, I'm just going to pay, some kind of money and online and I get leads magically. But they don't. Right? Like,
I put it in the online ATM. Money comes out the other end. I'm like, duh. Thank you, internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I always say, like, in a business, if you put $1 in my business, I put $1 in and I can make $10, but I don't track how I make $10. How the heck do I know where to spend more money?
Right.
Right. And so many business owners are like this in the real estate game is that like, they'll just pay somebody to do something and it works kind of, or it doesn't work or it works. And if it works, they're like, hey, I must be spending the right money. But if they were actually measuring that and figuring it out, they could really increase the efficiency of their business and scale up. And I'm looking at things like, new emerging technologies too, new emerging platforms like TikTok. We're going really hard on TikTok.
Wow, really? How is that working for you? So TikTok's advertising platform it's not super publicly available, right? Like what's the deal with that? Because I don't know a ton about it.
It's not public. It's not really publicly available. I'm kind of like harkening it back to the early days of Instagram.
Yeah.
Where there's going to be requirements. Like you're not just going to be able to go on and like throw up an ad like you can now on Facebook or Instagram with a account. So you're going to have so many verified followers. It's really kind of the Wild Wild West, like, I don't know if you do a ton of Snapchat, but Snapchat's starting to like get organized and we're seeing results there. But TikTok, we're focused on the organic growth right now.
Yeah.
So the videos are short. You can cut them up. My partner's like 22 or 23. So you tell me I'm the young guy. He's like the real young guy doing with everything. And I'm like a millennial. I don't even know what he is. So
no one knows what the people below millennials are. No. It will be a thing soon, I'm sure. Yeah.
So he's just doing organic videos every day. And we put that on YouTube and other places, but he's getting a lot of interest and a lot of people that are reaching out to him about, what he's talking about, house hacking. He's talking about wholesaling. He's talking about real estate investing. Yeah. And so we're really seeing an opportunity, not just to generate leads on there, but to generate authority, and authority, which also will lead to, you can do coaching out of that. You can do services out of that. You can get on bigger platforms out of that. So it's a great platform for authority, especially with younger generations. I know millennials are like, with the COVID and staying home, there's like a ton of millennials now joining it. And that's going to be your buyers in 5 to 10 years, that generation. So just thinking about how you can access and leverage the free platforms now before they turn kind of the pay-to-play model like Facebook is.
Want to find motivated seller leads online, but don't know where to start? Download our free 2019 Motivated Seller Keyword Report today. AdWords nerds have spent over $5 million this year researching the most profitable keywords for finding motivated seller leads. And you can grab these exact keywords when you download our report at www.adwordsnerds.com/keywords.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, man. You again are also talking about like a theme that I've been really talking about, which is investors forever. The only requirement to market as an investor has been you just tell people what you do. So like if you think about like what is a bandit sign? It says I buy houses, it's got your phone number. It's like all it is. There's no brand, there's no name, there's nothing. It's just here's the thing that I do. And it used to be that like the thing that investors did was so unique that all you had to do was tell people it existed and some people would sell to you, right? It's the same idea behind like yellow letters. A yellow letter is literally just saying, I exist and I buy houses, right? Like there's more to it. Yellow letter people are like angry at me because I'm, but it's like basically what it is, right? But our industry, right, is in the middle of this shift. And it's like we were talking about before, it happened 5 or 10 years ago for everyone else, which is you have to build the audience before they need you so that when they need you, they come to you rather than the massive, tech company that dominates your space, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're in a market where Zillow or Trulia is like entering and they're making hundreds and hundreds of offers a day, they don't give a hoot if they make money or not. It's like, well, how do you compete with that? Well, you compete with that because you built a relationship with someone and they're like, oh, of course, like I want to work with Josh or I want to work with whoever because I've been following his TikToks since I was in 6th grade or whatever, right? Like, now it's time. But investors don't think like that. Like we as an industry are not used to thinking like that at all. So that, it's a pretty wild approach, but I think it is in the future, the only approach that's really going to matter.
It's really earned media. If you think about the marketing landscape and let's just say you're out on the internet and you're like, what do you do? I buy houses or we buy houses.
Right.
A lot of people out there, like from the internet media perspective, they're not going to like just naturally be like, oh, I'm going to ask you and link to you or give you earned media because they understand like the game. And there's a little negative connotation, I would say, still with like, some of the stuff that we do.
Absolutely. 100%.
Realtors hate us, let's be honest. We're taking their commissions. So, and everyone is trained that like, hey, these are the guys that are coming in, giving you lowball offers and, like you just kind of scummy or whatever. And so when we talk about earned media, you're talking really about building an authority and a brand that people see you as a solution to the problem. They don't see you as the we buy houses guys. They see you as a solution to all of the issues of like, I can't sell my house and do all these things. And so you really transform what your company name is in their minds. And that spreads. You can't beat free or earned referrals. That's going to be moneymakers all day.
It's like you're talking about just in general, but even like in terms of SEO, it's like one of the things we say all the time is like, it is so hard to get links, like earned links for real estate investors. Because I'm like, who wants to link to you, right? And it's partially it's a function of the way that the industry has marketed themselves, right? And yeah, I think ideally we're heading into a period where folks like you guys are sort of, you're sort of promoting this new way of thinking about marketing, right? And then I think a lot of people that are established investors are really coming around to it, right? But it's a different kind of skill set too, right? It's hard for a lot of people to get on camera and like be natural, right? Which is kind of what platforms like TikTok. TikTok has a lot of issues, right? It has its own issues. It has like all these weird like Chinese censorship issues and stuff. But it's like there was an article in the Atlantic about how like there was a leaked TikTok like internal document that was like ugly people get their videos like automatically suppressed by the algorithm and stuff. So it's like there's weirdness there. But if you think about like, the platform itself is going to change, obviously. But what we're doing is we're training this whole generation of people that are going to be fire on camera, right? You can just go on camera and they can talk to their audience, right? That is such a skill, man. It's really going to change things. This is a really good transition. I'm going to say it's a good transition. That's going to make it true. I'm just going to say this is a really good transition.
Power of affirmation.
To the other side of your business. So you are a real estate investor in Lancaster County, right? Pennsylvania, right? But you are also in the kind of marketing and tech side of real estate investing. So tell people about that part of what you do.
Absolutely. So this is where it gets really interesting for me personally, and from like a bigger level business perspective. So when just kind of like the story earlier, I was telling you, 30 minutes, put a carrot site up. It was great. We started getting leads in. And what I realized, the difference between people who are doing consistent leads, closing leads, and the people that would do like, a couple of a year was really the back end. Because, the ways to generate leads on the front side are pretty well known. You can do PPC, you can do SEO, you can do banner signs, like direct mail. You're going to get leads in, right? If you do the right things, you'll get leads in. What really matters though is if you can close the leads. And so, I was messing around the backside and talking to some other investors. I was like, hey, what do you guys use for this? What do you use for this? And they're giving me, Podio, CRM, and Zapier, and all these connections, and MailChimp. And it just adds to the confusion, I think, as a business owner, right? Because you talked about earlier, a lot of these business owners in the real estate space, they don't want to do anything tech.
Right.
And so, the website's big enough. And now I have an email service provider. Like, what the heck is that? Now I have a CRM. What the heck is that? I have all these integrations. And so it gets really confusing. And when things get confusing, people normally just give up, right? They don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my vision, what we're trying to work on right now, is an all-in-one system. So you have a website, leads come into the website. Your team can go right into that same website portal, and your CRM is there. You can sign digital contracts out of it, which is awesome because you can send them right away to people, which is where this is, this industry is going towards digital contracts.
Yeah.
You can also do email follow-ups right out of it. So no need to integrate with like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or anything outside of it. And you can really just manage your follow-up inside of that system without having to buy multiple different platforms or third-party software. So it's a simplified system. That's where we're kind of going. And it's really going to start training people on how to use it.
I mean, that's really cool, man. I mean, I think you are exactly right that one of my kind of perpetual bum outs, right, is like, we'll generate leads for someone and then they won't follow up with them. And it's understandable to a large extent because follow-up can be difficult if you are like, I'm do everything in a spreadsheet and I follow up with everyone by hand. It's like, you're gonna screw that up sooner or later. That's just human nature, right? It's like literally just recently, I was like, I'm going to work with like 3 clients. I'm working with like 3 SEO clients because I wanted to kind of do a personal like deep dive on the process. Want to try to improve things. We're always working on like making everything better. So I'm like, don't worry, team, because I have the team. They don't do this full time. I'm like, don't worry, team, I got it. And they're like, are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, I got it. Don't worry, guys, I got it. I have messed this up like so many times because it's like, it's just a lot to remember, right? It's just, you got to follow with this person, right? And I'm not used to it, right? So it's difficult. So having a system in place that does a lot of this for you, or at least forces you kind of along a system that's going to kind of optimize what you're doing is really, really critical. I'm curious, like, what do you see as being really effective, either that you guys do as part of your system or that investors do as part of follow-up? Like what makes good follow-up for REI?
That's an amazing question for me, because I believe, and we have seen in our business, that 20 to 30% of our deals come on the follow-up.
Yeah.
So, we see a lot of people re-engage in that 15 to 30 day period after the initial lead comes in, after that first phone call is made. They re-engage via either opening email, which we can see in our system.
Yeah.
Which triggers other things to go out. They re-engage via text. Text is amazing. If you haven't looked at SMS, that's where everybody's at. Everyone's on their phone. Right now they're sitting at home, probably on their phone.
Right.
And in phone too. So you kind of combine the 3 together. When you mesh those together and understand what the user behavior is, it works a lot better. So we look at like, hey, did someone open the email? If they open the email, that means they probably read it. So I'm going to give that person a phone call.
Right.
They didn't open the email, I'm probably going to text them. It's a less aggressive play. So
I like that.
Yeah, we kind of see, and we kind of try to tailor it too on the follow-up side, is like, think about your clientele. who your clientele is. If it's someone who's maybe working during the day or is like younger and is busy, text them later at night. Do that. If it's an older person that's maybe up, they're probably up at like 6 a.m., which I wish I would do, but I don't. Call them early, call them before the workday.
Yeah.
It's really about thinking about the identifiers for who your clientele are. I've gotten deals where I'm texting people at 11:55 at night who are, 35, 40 years old, and they're up. And that's the time to communicate them. But if you try calling them during the day, they're never going to answer.
Right. Yeah, because they're out somewhere, right? So I'm curious, did you notice like a pattern, older people versus younger people? Like, do older people prefer a phone call and younger people prefer a text? Like, I would say, my generation is the official, and I always say this, I don't know if that's actually true, but I'm 40 as I'm recording this, right? So it's like, I'm born in 1980. So it's like, I'm like, my generation is the first one where it's like, don't call me, just text me. Like, I don't want you to call me. But like, sometimes I want people to call me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm sort of like right in the borderline where I'm like, don't text me to break up with me. You got to do that in person, right? But it's like everything else, just text me. But it's like the people below me are just like, they don't even know that your phone can call someone. They think that's like some weird app they have to buy, right? And like my mom's generation is just like, don't text me, just call me if something to say, right? So do you see like a real breakdown there?
Yeah, I do. It's a big divide, but I will say, when you get probably about 50 plus is when a call is going to be more effective for you. Because a lot of, you got to remember, a lot of parents now, their kids have iPhones. So, they're texting their kids all the day. So they're kind of being assimilated into that SMS game. The younger the person, definitely text is going to be a more effective option for them.
Yeah.
Middle age, I would say like between probably what we normally see is between like 35 to 55 is email is really good. Those people are usually on top of their email. Once you get past that age, it's like I check my email every 7 days. So
yeah, that's so weird to me.
Yeah, so inbox zero, right? Inbox zero.
It's a professional thing, right? It's like I'm in the office, so I have email, like whatever on top of it. It's really interesting. So do you guys? It sounds like what you guys are doing is like this is something I really believe in too. Is like multi-channel follow-up, right? So it's like you don't just email, you don't just call, you don't just text. You hit someone on like every possible wavelength because they're going to have one that they're going to like more. Is that kind of like the case?
Yeah, that's the case. I mean, it's just like when you do marketing, if you're just on PPC, you're relying on one revenue source and one lead source. So the more that you can do, the better you're gonna do essentially. Those are the three big ones there. Obviously, those work very effectively. Even sending people postcards in the mail after they contacted you is very effective. They already have that relationship. So instead of just sending postcards out to cold prospects, why don't you send them to warm prospects that haven't closed yet?
Yeah.
Things like that. They just add little touches. And, we know from marketing, I always tell people it's 7 to 11 touches sometimes before somebody makes a decision.
Yeah.
Depending on industry. So the real estate game's traditionally been that like, hey, I want 1 or 2 touches and I want to close.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a bad lead, right?
Right. It's a bad lead.
Otherwise, it's a bad lead. Yeah.
It's a bad lead. But in all reality, it's probably going to be 3 to 7, at least for a lot of these leads. So we just have to follow up.
I absolutely agree to you. In fact, I think that for us, we've seen an even bigger percentage of deals come through follow-up, right? So I think it's one of those things where, man, you're just leaving so much money on the table. And then there's like kind of like there's a recency bias too. So it's like if someone's seen a bunch of your stuff, and then you call them, they're just so much more likely to respond, right? So like we did this experiment where we had some clients send out direct mail pieces, and then we had some clients send out direct mail pieces, and we ran ads that looked like the direct mail pieces simultaneously. And the people that saw the ads were more likely to call from the postcard, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's just because it's like they just saw it and it kind of felt familiar. So they're just less likely to throw it straight in the garbage, right? Or at least that was our theory. So yeah, I think it's one of those force multiplier things that's just like so absolutely huge. If someone is curious about what you guys do at Glanzer, right, which is the company that's kind of primarily in this marketing space, follow-up space, how would they learn more about what you guys do, like that piece of it? Because, the audience here, they're investors, they're tech savvy, they're always looking for that kind of like leg up. So like, what's the next step if they're curious about what you guys do?
Sure. Yeah. Just check us out on our website. If you fill a contact form out, our phone number's on there as well. We're more than happy to have a conversation. I know we're in beta right now, so we're testing some people out. So we are looking for some investors maybe to partner with to kind of get some beta testing done, just get some feedback, because we want to make this a product that real estate investors actually want to use. Not they have to use, like they actually want to use it. Like
that's good. That's good.
So I want to, from a real estate investor mind, I want to see what people are saying and how they want to see things structured, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the best way we can serve our clients.
Yeah. It reminds me of, there's the old like Listerine kind of marketing motto or whatever it was. It's like the feeling you love to hate or something, because they're just like, objectively it feels bad. So we're just going to lean into that. And I think leading the idea of like, hey, like CRMs and software for real estate investors, it's kind of nightmares. Like this one's actually going to be awesome, right? So you're actually going to enjoy it. I really like that. So for everybody listening, okay, glanzair.com is the website. I'm going to have a link to that at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. Show notes for this episode and everything are going to be there. You can also check out. So I highly recommend this to everybody. You guys know I do this all the time on this show. So Josh is an online marketer. He's a dude. He eats his own dog food, right? Like he pays his bills with his own skills. So if you are curious what a guy like that is doing on his investing website, it's 717homebuyers.com. You should go check it out, right? You want to learn from the people and know what they're doing, right? Rather than like the dude who just happens to be down the street from you. So like go check out 717homebuyers.com and glanzair.com, which is glanzair.com. I'll have linked to both of those at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. Josh. Yeah. Josh. I almost got through the whole thing without screwing up. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It was refreshing to me. I love hearing your take on everything, and you bring a really unique perspective to this, and I can't wait to see what you guys do at Glanzair. So yeah, man, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great day.
Cheers. That's it for this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds podcast. Hope you enjoyed my interview with Josh. I know I certainly did. As always, join our Facebook group. It's free. It's the REI Marketing Nerds Facebook group. I'm in there every single week, posting, answering questions, giving trainings. It is the place to be. You can get there by going to adwordsnerds.com/group, adwordsnerds.com/group, or just go on Facebook and type in REI Marketing Nerds. You will find us. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you next week. Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this show. It means the world to me. I hope you and your friends and your family and your employees are happy and healthy and safe. And I will talk to you next week.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.